Imagine this. You're standing on a battlefield with 10,000 men at your side. Then from the horizon, you hear it. The thunder of boots, the clash of shields, the chant of soldiers who never retreat. Within minutes, your weapons are useless, your shield is ripped away, and the ground itself feels like it's against you. This was the reality of facing Rome, and today we'll uncover the secret behind their unstoppable arsenal. Let's start with the most famous weapon of Rome, the Gladius. At just half a meter long, it looked unimpressive compared to barbarian broadswords. But this was no ordinary blade. The Gladius was designed for the Roman style of warfare, tight, organized formations where soldiers fought shoulder to shoulder. Imagine a wall of shields pressing forward, and from behind that wall, short swords darting out with speed and precision. Unlike large swinging swords that left fighters open, the Gladius worked in narrow spaces. A single thrust was enough to disable an opponent and break the line. Historians describe how in battles like Cannae, 216 BCE, Roman soldiers used the Gladius to push back a much larger enemy step by step. Enemies expected long duels. Instead, they faced a machine-like rhythm of thrusts. The genius of the Gladius wasn't just in how it struck, but in how it fit into Rome's system: discipline, formation, and relentless advance. Asterisk transition gives, but before soldiers could close in with the Gladius, they had to weaken the enemy from a distance, and that's where the Pilum came in. The Pilum was not just a spear, it was an innovation. At nearly 2 meters long, its iron shank was designed to bend on impact. Once it struck a shield, it made that shield heavy, useless, and impossible to carry. Imagine a battle line, warriors confident behind thick wooden shields. Then a volley of Pilum rains down, shields snap, bend, or become dead weight. Suddenly, the front line is exposed. The Pilum wasn't recoverable. It was meant to be expendable, but it gave Rome a priceless advantage, stripping away enemy defense before the main clash even began. In Caesar's campaigns in Gaul, the Pilum turned the tide again and again. Gauls carried heavy shields, but one rain of Pilum forced them to drop protection and face Roman steel directly. Asterisk now combined the Gladius and Pilum with Rome's greatest defensive innovation, the Scutum. This rectangular shield was massive, over a meter tall, curved to wrap around the body. But its real power came when hundreds of them locked together. In open battle, the Scutum created an unbreakable wall. Soldiers advanced slowly, step by step, pressing into their opponents until the enemy collapsed. And in sieges, the testudo formation, the tortoise, turned the Roman army into a human tank. Front shields faced forward, side shields locked in, and top shields overlapped above like a roof. Arrows, stones, even boiling oil poured from city walls could barely touch them. Ancient accounts describe enemies firing thousands of arrows, only to see the Roman formation keep moving, unstoppable. The Scutum wasn't just defense, it was psychological warfare, a moving fortress that crushed morale before swords even crossed. Asterisk, but Rome didn't just fight in the field. They also waged war on cities, and here, their engineering genius came alive. The onager, a type of catapult, hurled massive stones with devastating force. Walls cracked, towers crumbled, and entire defenses shook with each strike. The ballista was like a giant crossbow. Instead of arrows, it launched bolts as tall as a man, piercing through armor and wooden gates alike. And then came the battering ram, covered with protective roofing, smashing relentlessly against gates until they shattered. The Siege of Masada, 73 CE, is a prime example. Roman engineers built a massive ramp to drag their siege engines up to the fortress walls. No matter how high defenders built, Rome's machines climbed higher. Against these machines, even the strongest fortresses felt temporary. Not all Roman weapons were grand. Some of the simplest were the most disruptive. The caltrip, a small four-spiked device, could be scattered across roads and fields. No matter how it landed, one spike always pointed upward. Cavalry charges stumbled, supply wagons slowed, and marching soldiers suddenly found the ground itself an enemy. Combined with trenches, ditches, and hidden pits, Rome turned the landscape into a weapon. Even without swinging a sword, they could halt entire armies before the first clash. But perhaps Rome's most powerful weapon wasn't made of iron at all. It was fear. Picture it. Tens of thousands of soldiers marching in perfect rhythm, shields glittering in the sun, banners flying high, and the thunder of drums echoing across the field. Enemies often lost their will to fight before a single strike landed. Roman generals understood that victory was not just about breaking bodies, it was about breaking spirit. This discipline and spectacle were as decisive as any blade or stone. Asterisk from the precise thrust of the Gladius, to the unstoppable force of siege engines, to the silent cruelty of caltrops, Rome's arsenal shaped not just battles, but empires. But which weapon do you think was the most decisive? The sword, the shield, or the machines that brought down cities? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want to explore the weapons of the Vikings or samurai in our next deep dive, make sure to subscribe. That way, you'll never miss the next story from history's greatest warriors.